The third quarter in Las Vegas didn't feel like playoff basketball. It felt like chaos dressed up as competition, and the Indiana Fever found themselves right in the middle of it. A'ja Wilson blindsiding Lexie Hull with illegal screens, bodies colliding without whistles. And then when Hull so much as breathed wrong, the refs slapped her with fouls. 41 fouls were called in the game, 16 of them in just one quarter. And yet the story that came out of it wasn't the madness the Fever endured, but how dominant Wilson's numbers looked on paper. That's the kind of spin that leaves fans shaking their heads, because what unfolded on that court wasn't the clean, disciplined basketball Indiana had been playing all year. It was a whistle-happy slugfest, tilted to protect the defending champions. And yet, somehow Indiana fought through it. Game 1 had been the shocker. Everyone expected the Aces, back-to-back champions, to flex their muscle and remind the league why they've owned this era. Instead, the Fever waltzed into Vegas and dismantled them by 16 points. Kelsey Mitchell put on the performance of her career, dropping 34 points with ice in her veins. She controlled the tempo, punished every defensive lapse, and silenced a national audience that thought Indiana was still years away. Meanwhile, A'ja Wilson had one of her worst playoff performances ever, forcing shots, missing looks she normally buries, and ending just 6-4-1-2. That was the tone setter. A young Fever team didn't just win. They humiliated the champs on their home court. That embarrassment lit a fire under Las Vegas. By Game 2, it wasn't about basketball anymore. It was about sending a message. From the opening tip, the Aces came out throwing bodies around, and the officials allowed it to spiral into an ugly mess. Forearms replaced footwork. Screens turned into blindsides. Cuts through the lane ended with players on the hardwood. The Fever, a team built on ball movement and rhythm, were dragged into a wrestling match. Every time they tried to build momentum, the whistle stopped play. 16 fouls in the third quarter alone erased any chance at flow. Coach Stephanie White even admitted after, "It's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul called every 10 seconds. They were much more aggressive and physical, and we didn't counter it with our off-ball actions." The whistle didn't just change the style, it changed the story. Lexie Hull, who shouldn't have even been on the floor after injuring her back in Game 1, was targeted again and again. She grimaced through every possession, taped up, clearly sore, and still managed to tie a Fever playoff record with 5 made threes. That should have been the headline. That grit, that toughness. But instead, the narrative was about Wilson's box score. 25 points, 9 rebounds, 5 steals. Numbers that look impressive, till you realize how they were padded by calls that bailed her out on misses and physical play that would have been whistled for anyone else. Aaliyah. Boston fought for every rebound like she was in a street fight, finishing with 10 points and 13 boards, but no one outside Indiana seemed to notice how much punishment she absorbed. Odyssey Sims poured in 18 points, weaving through hacks and double teams just to give Indiana a spark. But every push was answered with stoppages. You could feel the frustration bubbling over, not because the Fever were outplayed, but because they weren't allowed to play their game. And then there was Kelsey Mitchell. After torching Vegas in Game 1, she was hounded relentlessly. Face-guarded even without the ball, bumped and checked on every screen, her space evaporated. The Aces weren't going to let her dictate again. It worked. Her total dropped to 13, but you could see what it cost. She looked like a pinball, bouncing off defenders, absorbing hits that should have been fouls, but went uncalled. Becky Hammon even admitted later the physicality was out of control. That's how you know it wasn't normal playoff intensity, when even the winning coach doesn't defend it still. This isn't a story of a team broken. It's the story of a team preparing to swing back. Because now the series shifts to Indianapolis, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, where 17,000 Fever fans are ready to erupt at every whistle, every bump, every three-pointer. Where the same chaos that disrupted Indiana and Vegas will be turned into fuel. Becky Hammon herself admitted the Aces haven't had good experiences in Indy this season, and that matters. Officials can't hide behind silence when the entire arena reacts to every missed call. Boston's battles in the paint won't be ignored when the roar of the crowd demands accountability. Hull's toughness won't go unnoticed when every shot she makes sends the building shaking. And Mitchell's frustration from Game 2? That's going to turn into fire at home, where her rhythm has always found life. Game 3 and 4 aren't just about basketball. They're about defiance. About taking the punishment in Vegas, surviving it, and now flipping the energy. Indiana showed in Game 1 they could dismantle the champs. They showed in Game 2 they could take hits and keep swinging. Now, at home, with their crowd behind them, they get the chance to prove that this isn't a fluke. This is a team built for the moment. Lexie Hull summed it up best. After limping through her performance, our fans, they show up and they show out. That's the difference now. What Vegas used as fuel in Game 2, Indiana will weaponize at Gamebridge. The whistles might have tilted one way in Vegas. They won't drown out the noise in Indy. So the question is simple. Was Game 2 really a sign the Aces had figured it out? Or was it just proof that Indiana can take everything thrown at them and still stand? The Fever aren't going away. Not after what they've endured, and not with what's waiting for them at home. What do you think? Did the Aces expose flaws? Or did the Fever prove they're tougher than anyone realizes? Can Indiana ride their crowd to reclaim the series lead? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Show your support by writing "Let's Go, Lexie." And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of this playoff fight.